this computer. Hello, the Play MFL channel. Welcome, SR Monkey. How you feel? How you doing, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. Yourself?
Yeah, good, good. Well, I was saying to you before you come on, apologies for the bright red face. It's not coming off this kind of Coke Zero. It's because me and the wife have both got the cold or the flu or whatever, and the heating's up full bung. So there we go. But I know I see you've got your Diet Coke lined up for today as well.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, in fact, my mum, I told her not to get. She hasn't got much money at the moment. She's waiting for some stuff about my dad's will to be sorted out still. So she hasn't got much money. So I told her, don't buy me anything for Christmas. I don't care. Let's just not do. Don't do it this year. But she had to buy me something. She bought me. In fact, I'll go and get it because we're recording video, aren't we? Wait, 2 seconds. I'll be back.
This is not how we planned the content, by the way, but the good news is there was no plan for the content, so that is absolutely fine. Oh, nice. You get a
Hang on, which
Coca-Cola
one?
hat.
Coca-Cola Santa hat. So she got me that. My mum loves to buy a bit of junk, but
Yeah,
that tickled me. So she got me that and some white chocolate. That was about it. But
superb.
yeah,
I thought you were going to say she bought you like a 10 pack of like Diet Coke or something there, but
no, no.
there we
I
go.
don't actually like collecting like Diet Coke stuff, but I seem to get it quite regularly for birthdays and Christmas, like a Coca-Cola tray or something, which I'm never going to use or stuff like that. I don't know.
Nice.
Anyway,
Superb. So anyway, we're here to talk about MFL. You are the manager of Monkey Magic and Beb Monkey as well. That's your second team now, is that right?
baby
Baby.
monkey, French for baby monkey.
All right, yeah. Yeah, that shows you how much attention I was paying when I was doing French at school. So I actually did higher French, so I really should know that. But
So
yeah,
I only had one team last season, and obviously I got the second team this season primarily just to sort of stick extras in. But now you know what it's like. You get a team, and then you want to win with that team, don't you? So then you gutted. So now I want to buy more players so I can win with that team as well. But
yeah, it's always a slippery slope, isn't it? It's always a slippery slope. So how are the teams doing? I've played a good few friendlies against you to test some of the tactics, and I must admit, you do have a pretty good setup there in terms of the team. So how are things going so far?
well, Monkey Magic won every single game last season, got promoted, but and we won the cup. This season, due to manager and chairman error, has not been quite as smooth. We were up until yesterday 7 for 7 in the league. Then we drew yesterday, but I'm just suffering. Like you need like two players for each position, really. I think for MFL, and I'm a little bit short in both teams, and that's really sort of like I'm having to sort of play the B team way more than I'd like, and so I drew a game for the first time ever with Monkey Magic. So
Yeah,
still unbeaten, but 7-1 in the league, and Bebe are sort of not doing particularly well. They're doing okay. I don't think we'll go through in the cup, and in the league, I think if we win our game in hand, I think we're like third or something like that. But yeah, just like my backups are like 50 rated players, so
yeah.
I
I,
cannot wait for the bloody mid-season break. I need that transfer window now.
Yeah. Well, it's next week, isn't it? Is it next
Next
Wednesday,
week.
the 8th? So
Yeah, I think that I can't remember because obviously I've only been through this once before as well. They have the pack drop and then transfer window for like the few days after it, so
yeah,
everybody can sort of move around. But you can obviously only do 3 changes. But what about you anyway? Because obviously you came in.
yeah,
When did you come in? Like sort of towards the end of last season, you played the Redemption Cup, didn't you? And then
yeah.
you
So it
bought
was
some absolutely balling teams, and obviously you got Dublin, Celtic. I haven't checked, but I think Dublin will probably be top of the league.
yeah. Dublin the first season was a wee bit of a sort of not an issue, but I took them over. They were second, but still had to play the top team and the third and the fourth place team. Um, and obviously you only get 3 changes, so I'd bought a good few players, but I couldn't actually transfer them into the team. So ended up not like even coming in a promotion place, which was a bit disappointing because I thought that, maybe the team would go up. So obviously after that, like, a lot of those guys were just on 1 year contracts and stuff. So yeah, I've strengthened that a lot. Then I think Dublin, try to think, I think I actually have won every game in the league, but it's been an interesting one because the league's probably that league's probably slightly easier for me to win than my ice league. because in that league I've got quite a good gap between like my overall best 15 or whatever and the rest of the teams. But in Ice League, um, B Sellers has got a team in that, and basically, although my Celtic team's actually really good, he's got a really good team as well, and he's won every game. So it's going to be like basically the games between me and him that decide whether or not the league's won, I think.
Have you
So
played him yet?
no, it's actually coming up in a couple of days. So that's quite an interesting one
Oh
because
yeah, tomorrow evening, Celtic at home to Black Sea United.
yeah. So that's going to be quite an interesting one. But contrasting it as well in the cup. So like I think I said this to you before, but my Dublin team is playing like in the cup against like a guy who's winning the Silver League, mid-table gold team and a bronze team or whatever. So like I've not actually won a game in the cup with Dublin yet, but I'm playing against like guys who are whacking out 86 rated defenders and like it's like dearie me. So and I think
Yeah,
one
I'm in the Challengers Cup, and the Challengers Cup is hard enough. Like all of the teams in my division are bronze or silver, and it's not going well at all.
yeah.
You're in the division like the cup
Above.
above that, so you're going to be playing against some, absolutely blinding teams. So
Yeah, it's hard, but I kind of like it as well, if you know what I mean, because it makes a bit of sense that, one of the main sort of not issues, but with the influx of people and people building their galleries, and obviously, we've put a wee bit of money in and we've bought really good sort of players and things. There's a lot of teams, I think, at the moment that are in unnatural positions, so like if I could get my hands on a decent sort of bronze-ish license for a reasonable amount of money, then I would sort of consider it a wee bit, but I've become a bit attached to Dublin and the story of like Dublin and I want to kind of win my way up as well. So like, I see like obviously we'll come back maybe to talking about a Kane or a can, but you just like I want to buy a Diamond League club. But that was never really my strategy, if that makes sense. I wanted to buy younger guys and just like enjoy the process of learning the tactics, learning the like how things work and working my way up through the leagues. So gonna be
yeah, no, I
interesting.
mean exactly what I like as well. You don't want to. I quite like winning games for one, so it's quite nice. Although it is, I don't see it's cheating at all, but it is a little bit unfair. It's like I know I'm going to win the majority of my games because my team's better than everybody else in the division, or it was last season. This season's a little bit more competitive, but I will be happier when I'm up towards the top as well because you're earning more MFL, and MFL means you can buy more packs. But
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I mean, I think the flip side of that is I've kind of looked at how much I've spent and the MFL levels at the lower like leagues aren't really that high. So that's why I was kind of actually pleased to be put in a higher cup because firstly it's a bit of a test, right? It kind of lets you pit your wits in terms of your tactics or what you're going to do or play against better teams, which is probably good for player progression and stuff. But actually it gives, if you get a couple of good results, you get to the last 16 in the cup then you probably get more MFL from that than you would do from winning the leagues that we're in just now. So I think it's quite a nice balance, actually. I quite like the setup of it. And Celtic are the same. They've actually done better in the cup, won two games and drawn one. One of them was against Calvinator, who obviously knows what he's doing as well. So actually pretty good results for Celtic in the cup, and I think we'll get into the last 16 there. So that's going to be quite interesting because yeah, once you add all that up and you work on the sort of MFL and maybe a couple of loans here or there or whatever, then it all adds up. So it's all good stuff, I think.
that cup game you had yesterday was probably one of the most winnable ones that you had, wasn't it? Like because that
Aye.
you were, maybe marginally better or definitely even, and you had the better of the game, but obviously drew it. If you'd have won that, you potentially could have gone through in with Dublin as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think I hit the definitely. It doesn't tell you you've hit the post of the bar, but if you look at the way the action goes, I definitely hit the post of the bar in the last minute because the ball came across and like the goalkeeper was like in the middle. It went towards the goal if that's going in and it deflected back out. So it's a wee bit, aye, it's a wee bit heartbreaking sometimes, but that's the game. I mean, like, I think the first cup game I won with Celtic, I won 3-0 and the other team were the better team, and I still managed to win 3-0. My goalkeeper is a Stormer, so then you've just got to accept that you're going to have the rough with the smooth with some of the stuff on that. And and with Dublin as well, I played that team who the guy is winning the Silver League. Like he's got an insane team, but he doesn't really have any depth. So it would probably been better if I played him later on because his players are all down at like below 90% now, but he didn't rotate at all for that game, obviously, because it was the first game in the cup. So there we go. Keeping players fresh or whatever's not really worked yet. But I think if I get a result in the next game, if I manage to scrape a win against that team in the next game, then I would still be in with a chance of second. But it's kind of boom or bust moment there. Like if I don't get a win, then I'm going to be trotting out the reserves in the cup, I think. So there we go. It's the way it's stacked up. So
Yeah, no, I think I'm going to be trotting out the reserves now in both cups, but
yeah,
yeah, just concentrate on the league now. Get the wins nailed or promotions nailed, and then move on.
yeah.
A lot depends. Like, I'm saying I'm looking forward to the transfer window next week, or desperately need the transfer window next week. Well, getting packs is tough, and if you don't get packs, getting players is tough. We've seen that. Even if you put players on the market for above the rating, above the price that you think they're worth, then often they get snapped up. There's people like I can't remember his name. Is it Greco, a guy in the Sorare Ramble Discord? He's been buying up quite a lot of decent players. Obviously, you jump on anything that's young and got a pulse. But
Don't tell the wife that. Yeah, no, it's moving quite quickly at the moment, which is quite interesting. I mean, I actually wanted to talk about the pack stuff, and I think that it's one of the things I really like about the management of the site. So, firstly, there's packs coming next week, and yeah, I think there's the rare packs that went from 80 to 100 now. With the amount of like people who have brought in money and the amount of users that's come in, there might have been a temptation just to double the amount of packs and just say, all right, there's hundreds of people want packs, we'll just double them. But obviously, the consequence of that, as we've seen in some other platforms, is that you can end up with an oversupply. So I think like the supply and demand side of things is quite interesting because the window's not open at the moment, but every time I log on during the day, people are buying and selling players, which is obviously they're maybe going to buy that player and get the contract cancelled, or maybe people are just building towards next season. But it's I find all that like pretty interesting, but I do like the way the overall supply and demand has and is being managed. Have you got any thoughts on that?
well, when I spoke to Matt before joined MFL, and when I spoke to him when we recorded the Ramble episode with him, the MFL Ramble episode with him, like one of my big takeaways was that game economics. That was the thing. He's like, yes, we understand we could sell more packs, we could probably distribute more players, we could give out more MFL, but we want to get the players to a price point, before chucking more into the market. We want demand to equal supply. We don't want things to go too crazy. And that he's kept to his word so far in the sort of the 2 months that I've been playing it. And yeah, that's quite impressive. It can also be a little bit sort of grinding because, especially if you're looking for players, I understand it's tough. And I didn't get a rare pack last time, so I had to jump on to Flouty or whatever people call it, and buy one for more than it's worth because you can list them on the secondary market straight away if you buy a pack.
Yeah.
Packs were selling for, is it 120 for a rare pack? I think I paid 200 for it. So not quite double the price, but a decent chunk up. And I was lucky. I got two rare cards. I got that striker Kurt Torres, who's just an absolute beast, and that paid off. But for a lot of people that don't get them, they will look to the secondary market to buy packs. Because people love to gamble. We've seen that on So Rare that people love to spin the wheel and do a 20 essence tear and gamble on getting a higher card. And people love to gamble in whatever product. Not that MFL is gambling, but
They get in trouble there. Yeah, no, I get that. I mean, I think the flip side of things is that, if a cane or a can's really going to go for like 200 clubs, and if you're going to allow that, right, if you're going to say, look, there's not a maximum amount of clubs per user, if you want to buy like 200 clubs, the only rule will be that we're not going to put your clubs in the same division against each other at a certain point, or they won't be allowed to be promoted. So fair dues, but that's going to bring obviously a lot of demand for players as well. So you've got to kind of meet that demand. I guess one of the risks, which might be a nice problem to have, but we've seen it on our platforms, is where prices get too high. Where it goes like pretty bonkers, and then people buy into that, and then they think, oh, there's loads of demand just now. But then when a Can's sorted out his 200 clubs or whatever, and he's hoovering up all the MFL, then he's got some sort of plan to get some of that money back out, and then things start to drop again. Then, so I mean, it's quite a tough one to balance, but I'm glad that on the flip side that they haven't just went mental with packs because you can sort things out if you're not minting enough cards, but it's a lot more difficult to sort out if you've minted too many. I think that's my thoughts on it at the moment, having seen what's happened in other platforms. So
I'm pretty sure they'll be keeping an eye on it. But what have we got? The oldest player in the game is 29 now, so essentially 3 months down the line, we'll start to see the first retirements. So, maybe a couple of seasons after that, we'll start to reach a point where there's sort of like that equilibrium in terms of number of players on the platform, number of cards on the platform for the managers on the platform, and then it will be easier to balance. Obviously, we
yeah,
don't know how many players are going to drop out. I'm sure you could check, but
yeah.
it's
I
quite
think
interesting. Do you think it can obviously, we invited him to join the Ramble Discord, which he's come on, and I think he said on there, didn't he? I want to buy 200 clubs. Do you think he really wants to buy 200 clubs? Like, it's a head fuck for me to manage two clubs.
yeah.
Maybe I could see me going to three, four, five, but after that, it's just a ball ache, surely.
Um, I would say he's bought more clubs than we own jointly just this week, and it's not even in the middle of the window. So
How many has he got now? I'm just going to have a quick look there.
I think he's got about 22 or 23. And he started pretty late as well, so he was looking for some late registrations and all that sort of stuff. Like, so I was laughing at that one team he had in Ice where you lose the Ice team and it's got all these guys are 50s and 60s. He had like an 86 and a 78 and a 79. He was like, he's got a legendary striker in Ice. You're
Yeah,
like, bloody
yeah,
hell.
they're in my cup. He played them in the cup, and he didn't rotate. So I thought there's no way I'm going to win this. So I just put my worst players out, and I ended up getting a draw. And then I noticed last night he did rotate, but he didn't rotate his legendary. So literally it was just 50 rated players, and then like a legendary up top. Cracked me up, but yeah.
That's mad. Yeah, I mean, I mean, guess that's really something for the site to sort out rather than us. Like one thing I was going to say there was that when the players are coming out, the players don't always come out at 16 as well. So I think that's another way that obviously MFL will balance the economy because they do mint players at 24 and 25 and stuff, right? So like not all players who are minted from packs or all players who are minted from player rewards come out at 16 and 17. So some of them might only have like 7 or 8 months of a lifespan, if that makes sense. Like I got thanks to the person that signed up, I got a referral reward and got an a common card, and it was a 28-year-old goalkeeper. So, like, as part of that, there's obviously some sort of modelling going on in the background where not all the new players come in are all 16, 17. So, I guess that's another way to balance the overall economy.
Yeah, I wonder if they'll change that down the line because once players start retiring, then you know surely there's no sense because if you start introducing players that are sort of 28, maybe it'd be more realistic to have a max new player age of 24. Sometimes you have players that come through sort of, develop late and come through, lower divisions, don't they? So, maybe that age. But yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't really thought of that. I just had a quick look at Akan and he has spent coming on to 4,000 on players, including buying another legendary just this about an hour ago. In fact, 45 minutes ago, he spent £2,600 on a 91 rated 24-year-old.
Yeah, I was gonna share my screen anyway, so why don't I share my screen and we'll go and we'll have a look at that because I wanted to have a wee look into my own sort of HQ and stuff. So let's have a look at that as well.
Yeah,
Um,
originally I spoke to Akan. I was going to ask him for like a couple of loans. I thought, he's got surely got to have too many players for all those teams. But he keeps buying more teams, so I haven't even bothered to ask him about loans yet.
yeah,
It doesn't seem a point.
yeah. This does remind me a wee bit of like the old. Remember, you used to have a ticker on Football Index where it was like all the buys and the players and everything. So
Yeah, yeah,
a
yeah.
bit like the ticker. But yeah, so there's Whiffy's in with 74. Dionysos has been quite active. I've noticed he's bought a lot of rare players recently. So a can's in with $115 for Big Fred. And there we go. El Sayed. So he bought El Sayed for that. It's a test of my memory. I think this guy's like 99 for dribbling.
Oh, is it gone and click on it? I haven't checked.
Yeah, I remember seeing him. Like he's just like
Bloody hell.
a maniac. He just got like some insane
And
stats.
96 shooting as well, 85 pace.
Jeez.
Wow.
So yeah, $2,600. So that's a significant investment, you know. So Robert Melendez went to Niaco, somebody else. There's a lot of active like managers, even the top end of the game as well, you know. And then obviously you there is a section where you can check what clubs have been bought as well. It doesn't look like from the latest sales he's bought any sort of clubs recently, but I think you can filter into clubs, can't you?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's clubs for sale rather than activity. So yeah, and he's
Maybe it's on one of the other sites. I can't remember. I'm sure I've seen it somewhere as well. But yeah.
yeah. But I mean, if you see this, like it's really
I know
active.
it has them on here, doesn't it, clubs? It
Yeah,
has them in the same list, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
yeah. People are buying and selling at all different price ranges, right? So it's not just like people buying cards that are like $3 and $4. You've got guys going for like all the way up. I mean, I have to admit this is one of my favorite parts of the actual game, right? Is just the fact that, and we'll go back to my HQ just now while I'm talking about this. Just the fact that when players go up through the ratings, people value them more. So it's quite a natural like it just seems to be a natural economy. You'll see there, like I've actually sold two guys there as well in the last week. So Alistair Rose, the guy who I had at Dublin, wasn't really getting a game. So I just thought it was a wee bit of a waste. I thought he would come in on rotation. I've changed my formation a wee bit. But I bought this guy for like $34 like a month ago and I've got 50 for him. And he has went up one in the rating as well. And this guy Figueroa again was pretty similar. I had him in as a sort of left midfield cover and I'm not playing the 3-4-3 diamond as much. So just didn't really need them. So like, I've decided just to sell those guys on, just bank like some dollars just now. But what I really like about how things work is that when you see the player progression, you see going through the ratings, the market is quite natural. If you see a guy who's 83 or 84, then they sell for more. You know what I mean? Like I know it goes without saying, but it's like you've got that feeling of if your players progress, they can be worth more, which I think is quite cool, really.
I think the market has matured as well. Even since I joined, there seems to be a lot more people now that look into sort of, has that player progressed in the past? And,
Yeah,
a lot of people look for players that have progressed already. It's like, oh, he's going to be a great player. But I look for players that haven't progressed much because I think that if I buy a 70 rated player that hasn't progressed at all yet, well, he will progress at some point.
yeah,
Maybe his prime age is actually just a little bit later than some of the other guys. So that way you can get a slightly cheaper player, but somebody who could still turn into, 80, 85 rated player at some point. You
yeah,
just don't know. And also, Matt and the MFL team have said numerous times that progression isn't linear for every player. Progression is different.
yeah,
The prime age will be different, but even if the prime age is the same, maybe they progress at a different rate. That could be for multitudes of reasons. It could be that, your team's in the wrong league, so they're not playing that many good players. Maybe it's just not being used that much. There's so many reasons into how
yeah.
players progress.
Yeah, I've actually pulled up the progression tab here because it's definitely one of my favorite parts. Like you feel as if you've got a sort of yes, a connection to like your players. So, I mean, obviously, look at this here. Like, this guy, Martin, who's a midfielder, has went up three for shooting just in the last 7 days. So, obviously, you can toggle this last 24 hours, last 30 days, etc. Interestingly, I'm going to toggle it to last 30 days and see what the best sort of progression sort of overall is for like all the players that I want to see if it's toggle it properly. So yeah, I mean. Like it's nothing too mental, obviously, in terms of guys I own myself, but like this guy's up like, plus 2 points in the last like 30 days. I think a lot of that's actually been fairly recent. He's been up six for defending, which wouldn't be hard because he was only 15. But obviously in terms of the key stats that define the overall position for him being a sort of left winger, he's still a +2 overall. And also he's only 20 as well. So I mean, like that's just an element of things that I really like. What you said there was quite interesting because that was one of the things I was trying to get my head around. Like should you be buying young guys who are showing signs of progressing already, i.e., they might be guys who just have a high potential rating, or should you just be looking for guys who haven't progressed at all, knowing that players should progress by 1 or 2 points at the very minimum over their career. So they should have one or two in them at some point. If you're intending on just keeping them for any length of time, then how you play them or where you place them for the loans or whatever should be relevant then. So
It's funny, like some people, like they'll see a player go up one or maybe go up to uncommon, and they'll try and sell that player. I bought a player last season, a defender who had gone up one or two, and since then he's gone up another six with me since I bought him. And like his defense has gone up seven, shooting's gone up seven, although not great for a defender, but everything has just gone up. And every time I looked at him, he was like moving up points. But yeah, you're right. Progression is like the crack of the game for me. Like I
yeah,
wake up in the morning, I make my cup of tea, pour a pint of Diet Coke, sit down, put the news on the TV, and the first thing I look at my phone is progression on MFL. And
yeah,
that's got to say something about the game that, if the first thing I want to do in the morning when I wake up is check and see if any of my players have progressed, they're doing something right.
yeah. I find that part engaging. Like I do find that really engaging. I'm not gonna lie, before I come in, when I was looking at these sites like MFL and Footium, I just thought it's fake players. It's like you're not got that connection of like you have with Liverpool or I have with Celtic or whatever, but like it's not really worked out like that, if that makes sense, because once you see guys starting to get better, you build that kind of wee affinity with the guys who've been doing well for you. Like a lot of my guys who are in Celtic, I want to take them into the next division and see how they do in the division up if they get up. So, they should still be good enough for that division as well. But there's part of it is like I want to see my right back that's doing well, like see if he gets better, but also want to see him like, having a go at the higher division. So I've kind of called up on my screen like what I've been doing myself. You'll see like most of my players who are my best players don't actually play at Dublin or Celtic at the moment. So that's a bit of a giveaway that I've been spending a bit myself, to be honest. But
I was going to say, is that because you've bought them recently or because you've loaned them out? But I'm assuming if you'd bought these players, you would have played them. So
yeah, it's kind of a bit of both. I mean,
have you approached any of them to cancel the loans?
well, yes and no. So I've made sure that the guys I've bought are out of contract by the end of season two, so I'll have them back for next season. I have to say the community's been absolutely amazing. So this guy I bought, Tarasenko, is only 20, and I thought he was quite a good price, so I just decided just to take it. But he's under contract until the end of next season. Um, and the guy who I've bought him from was on like Twitter and stuff, so. I dropped him a message and just say I picked up the players and stuff, and he replied the next morning and said, "Oh, thanks for picking those up. See that this guy's on under contract. If you want, I'll release him in the next window." So we hadn't pre-agreed that, but he actually just sort of said that himself, which was really nice. I found that a lot of the times that people are really reasonable with that. Even like this guy Martin, he's currently Canon Yaounde's, who's so legendary, who's in our Discord actually. And he
Yeah.
messaged me and said, "Look, I see you bought this guy because he's on loan there, so I didn't buy him from him." He said, "Oh, I would really hate to lose him because he's quite key to me, but if you really need him, I will cancel his contract." And I was like, "No, it's fine. Look, I knew that he wasn't going to be coming into play until the end of the season. I'm just like planning for later, but do appreciate that." So the moral of that whole story is that there's lots of goodwill and everything in the community. Like I've seen loads of examples of that where people have been really reasonable with other managers, and I really like that element of it as well, which is good.
Yeah, the community's great. And I think that, that's one of the things that I found fairly quickly. Sort of like there's a lot of people out there that are willing to help. There's a lot of people that are engaged with the game and love the game, and they will talk to you. Like the only problem is sometimes you find managers that are maybe slightly less engaged. Have got players listed and they're putting out. If you forget to check whether they're on loan, I bought two players last window when I was rushing sort of towards the back of the window trying to fill gaps, and those players were tied into contracts and sent cancel requests. There was no way of contacting them, and like
Yeah.
cancel requests just kept on getting rejected. So sometimes it is on you, but I think when you're dealing with players like the higher up end, generally they're pretty engaged in the game. And as
Yeah.
you just said, like a lot of them are sort of willing to help. And, it's been, I think there's a lot of manager, or not a lot, there are some managers and agents out there that have got a hell of a lot of cards. and they are willing to do deals. They're willing to sort of loan players to you, even to me. And like in the what division are we in? Stone. What did it go? Ice, stone,
Ice,
iron.
yes, the
Yeah,
ice and
stone.
stone. Yeah, but
Yeah, so we're in stone at the moment, which is a pretty, it's better than ice, but it still isn't much, is it? If you win the league, and I'll probably win the league, you'll probably win the league. But if someone's lent a player to us, even at 10%, that's still not very much, is it? So, and players that would improve my squad or your squad for Dublin, are top players now, aren't they? Really?
yeah, I think that's like I've kind of got a bit of a decision to make myself with that. I mean, I think firstly, if I'm out the cup, then I don't think I'll be sort of calling any of those guys into Dublin, if that makes sense. Like I think I'd rather have them placed at a higher league from a progression point of view. Um, but obviously, what I'm looking to do is every window or every period where I feel as if I want to spend a bit is to just to look to improve the overall roster. So like I've got a couple of guys there who've got a fairly good chance of being legendaries, and looking at the price of legendaries, obviously most of them were a reasonable age or at least $400-500. So they're a lot of money. So I mean, if I can get a couple of guys who come up even if they're maybe 18 or whatever, just now it takes a couple of seasons, but they get into that legendary bracket, then I'd be delighted by that. But that kind of in a way encourages me to put in some money, and like I was kind of slightly not ahead of the curve, but like I was always wanting to buy some of the younger guys because I knew that at some point with people starting to age that there would be that dynamic in the market. Because what's going to be really, really interesting is what happens when some of the top players hit like 31. Will the guys there just say, well, I want to get something back for them? Or will they just sort of ride that out and just try and use them until they retire and try and get that sort of utility out of the cards? Because you could come in and do a Tony Cruz at 32 and say at the end of the season, I'm off ski, but I think the average retirement age is about 36 or 37. So, you know, how will the market price those guys, knowing that they could just turn up at the start of pre-season and say, see ya, I'm away at the end of the season.
Well, I play just like to sort of make a comparison. I play Footium now as well. Probably not quite as invested into it at the moment, but it's got a slightly different rule in Footium. A player reaches, is it 31 or 32? They just like automatically retire. That's it, gone from the game, just retired, worth nothing. So you can buy 30, is it 30 or 31? So it shows how much potential I've been playing, but you can buy like the last year before they retire at the start of the season. You can buy those players, even decent players, for like pennies, and they'll do a job for you that season. They're not going to be worth anything the season after,
Yeah,
but it's slightly different with MFL, isn't it? Because I think you find out when a player's going to retire at the start of the season, before they retire.
yeah,
So, in theory, if you were buying players the year before at a huge discount, like top players, you are taking a bit of a gamble, but some of those players could go on for maybe another 4 or 5 seasons. As
yeah.
you just said, like I think what is the maximum age? 42?
42. So it's like a maximum, or it's like a 10 rating. So when you get to 32, there's a hidden rating between 0 and 10.
Yeah.
And the actual average, as far as I could see from the article, was that players will retire around about 36 or 37. But you could just get unlucky and you could have a couple that just turn up at 33. I think the other thing that the article said was that you will see signs of that as well. So the signs will be that even though they've still got reasonable physical stats, they'll start losing energy a lot quicker. So if you're like you get a guy who's 34, every time you use him, he goes from 100 to 90% energy, then that will give you a sort of clue that he's closer to retirement. So I think people need
To get him to 100% and then just put him on the market.
to yeah, just hope nobody
Yeah,
knows.
he's peak fitness, don't worry.
Yeah, but I mean that's natural as well. I quite like that as a game dynamic because obviously a lot of older guys like do need more rest, so it seems quite intuitive as well. It's a sign of when they might be able to be going to retire, but also it makes more sense in terms of the overall game as well because they've spent their whole career building up their physical stats, but then they're getting a bit older and they're a bit like us, and need at least like 4 cans of Coke Zero before 3 o'clock to even get going during the day. So it's like, anyway, yours is Diet Coke, so I don't know. Mine still get caffeine in it, and yours is get less sugar.
No,
Mine,
same caffeine, just no sugar, no sweetener. I'm weird as well. I open when I get a huge bottles of Diet Coke and I get shitloads of them. I open them, let them go flat, then put them in the fridge because I don't like the bubbles. I just like drinking like a flat, cold drink of caffeine.
Mm, fair enough. Was nicer than coffee half the time, isn't it? So I'm not really a big coffee drinker either, if I'm honest. So
No, I have a cup of tea a day just in the morning, but that's about it.
yeah. So
But
we've kind of we went back through overview. I want to say before we finish this video at some point, I don't know when we're going to end. We've got probably other topics, but the Sorry Ramble community in Discord is absolutely first class. One of the first things I do when people post on Twitter or whatever and say they're interested in MFL is try and encourage them to come into the Sorry Ramble Discord because the MFL section in there is great. You've got lots of good people in there with lots of knowledge, lots of people who are active, lots of people who are willing to help. Some people who are loaning to each other. Sometimes we'll loan to each other, and there was a point where like people were going bonkers, and all the loans were like 10%. And then like I had a couple of guys left. You maybe had some guys left. There's other guys in the Discord, and just going, look, we've agreed 2% for this season. You need a player, you can take it 2%. So there's a big community feel in there, and I think like if you're watching this and you haven't actually started up or you recently started up, then I would recommend you get involved in a good Discord like that.
the first season we were doing like 0% loans, which was great, but then suddenly like loans like went ridiculous, went absurd, didn't they? Like at the start of the
Yeah.
season, they were like, 10, 12%. I've got a couple on loan for like 10% to managers. So then like, a fair price then seemed to be like 2+1 or 1+2 or 1+3 or something like that. Just because I would prefer they were getting games like the players
Yeah.
I send out on loan. I'm not that fussed about taking 1% of 500 MFL, but what I want is the players to progress more. So I'd rather they play games. But
Yeah. Yeah. I
and
think
you
that's
you know they probably will if you send them to managers on like a Discord where you know the people.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a reassuring thing as well. So you look at a guy and he's get run into like the 50% energy or whatever, you're like, you know, you can message them and say, like, gonna give him a rest, like, or you can have a chat about it. I think you make a good point there as well. That's one of the things I've kind of not underestimated, overestimated. I don't know. It's like those two guys I've sold there is because I've had them in Dublin and I've just not used them. So they're not getting any XP. Obviously, they're getting the training but they're not getting the game XP. So like if I had a plan of maybe hoping that those were younger guys who would develop, that's not worked because I've not been able to find games for them. And the reason I've not been able to find games for them is because even though I've got a really great team in Dublin, it still is really competitive. So I don't want to be taking liberties, right? If my guys are fresh enough, I want to get my full team out. I want to win. I want to get up through the divisions. I don't want to be in a scenario where like I've got all these sort of really good players and then I don't get promoted and then like I'm having to run them in lower divisions because okay maybe for the odd season or whatever but you don't want to be holding on to players in the wrong division for any sort of length of time I don't think so one of the things I will be doing is if I do see some wee gems or whatever but I don't have a squad space for them then I'll happily just go and pick them up and loan them out to one of the other guys and as you said it's more important that they're getting games rather than trying to sort of farm MFL. You want them to get games. You want them to see if they develop and stuff. So
Yeah, especially at the level we're at now. I mean, it may be slightly different for you because you've got some, higher rated players that you'll be loaning out and you'll be loaning them out to probably higher leagues, won't you? Some of the players. So
yeah,
yeah, like getting a percentage then starts to become more meaningful. But at the
yeah,
moment, for me, as you just said, it's all about promotion, and should get it this season. I imagine you'll get it this season with Dublin, and then next season. I think you're better equipped for next season already. So I could definitely do with get signing a few more players, but just
yeah.
banking on Liverpool smashing Man United this weekend. I'm not that hopeful, but if they do, it could be a good weekend on so rare.
I've watched Man United a couple of times, and I have to say, I think that's fairly likely. I mean, I've been really impressed with Liverpool actually, so there we go. But I mean, like that is right. I mean, I did have a sort of big win elsewhere, and I spent sort of half of that buying like good players, and also it's quite interesting the dynamic when you see somebody coming in like a can who says they're going to put a lot of money into the game. My first thought at that point was I've got to accelerate my plans because all those good young players that I want to buy, he's going to buy them in the next window, and that's them gone. They're off the market, and I'll not be able to get them. Or if I do want to buy them, I'm going to have to pay the $50 more or whatever. So I just kind of made the decision of right, okay, got the money just now. I know I have to wait a wee bit, but I'd rather secure those guys and then they're in my own agency and then I can call the shots with them rather than just waiting, just going on one day and thinking, yeah, let's go buy this guy. I want somebody under 22 and just looking at the ticker and it's like, I can. Vissel fucking Sao Paulo, Vissel, like, all the clubs and everything. Because, like, once he starts going, he starts buying clubs, if you buy one club, you're going to have at least 15 players assigned to that club to rotate properly or be competitive or whatever. So every time he buys a club, then there's demand for like 14, 15 players. And like you see, I don't know if you noticed the other day, like he bought like the whole lower end of the legendary market. So like I went on, had a look and it was like just filter to legendary, sort by lowest price. And they all started at like 400, $450. And I seen he was buying, and I went on like 2 days later, and I went on to Legendary and filtered again. Lowest Legendary card for sale was 600. So he basically one day of buying, he'd raised the floor by $200. So
Yeah, he did. I mean, he made a huge splash, didn't he, over Christmas? But
yeah,
I'm sort of glad he didn't come in before, earlier, because if he'd come in earlier, it would have like buggered me, because I'm sure he would have bought half the players I'd looked to buy. But
yeah, it's
I'm just looking
interesting.
now, and if you're willing to do what you've done and buy players that are under contract until the end of the season, then the prices aren't too bad. But when you're looking for guys that are out of contract at the moment, free agents, the prices are fairly absurd, aren't they? But
Yeah, I've
I think
really
it'll get
noticed that.
easier. Like the market will be invigorated by the pack drop. So you just need to be ready to rock and roll as soon as it happens.
I think one thing I did notice was that towards the end of the last window, that free agents were really quite scarce. So, getting towards the last day or two, like everybody was really signed up, if that makes sense. So the
Yeah.
guys who were free agents were going for like a premium. So like, again, the reason I bought those cards is because I went and I seen them and I seen they were actually at buyable prices. You can go on your MFL assistant or whatever and see what the market's been paying for them. And nearly everybody listed at the moment is listed for whatever the kind of ongoing free day or last free average is, plus maybe 20%, 30%. 16-year-olds to 18-year-olds, people are just putting daft prices up thinking that everybody's idiots. Guys that would maybe have sold for $10 2 months ago or whatever, and they're getting listed for like $70 and stuff. But when you see those guys and they're like on the price point, but you've only got to wait like 3 weeks to be able to use them, like I just go and buy them. Like, if I think they're improve my squad, because the guys I bought are better than the guys who are currently playing in those positions. So that's my kind of my plan to work my way through the divisions. And I think by the time I hit bronze and silver, I'll still be competitive, even with the guys I've got just now. So I might not like I might go for a spell where I don't have to spend in for a couple of windows because I've front loaded it a bit. So in that time, maybe some of the guys will have progressed. So that's the kind of master plan. But I have to admit, I've not done very well at all with my original budget of about $100. Like came in and I thought maybe I'll get some loans and I'll just spend about $100 and
Well, I knew you'd spend more than that because I know what you like. So when you joined, I was like, okay, he's not going to spend like $100. So I knew as soon as I started seeing you buy players, but I didn't think you were going to buy quite as many good players. But it's easy to do, and you've bought well. The players you've bought are young players. They've got whole careers ahead of them. A lot of them are at decent prices. And the players you bought when you originally joined, their prices are a lot better than they would be if you were buying the same players now. So
yeah.
maybe you joined at the right time.
Maybe it could be an element of that. I think that's one of the things I do like reasonably well is always look ahead. I think as if people get to this point and they've not fallen asleep listening to me and you talk about MFL, but planning ahead's a huge thing, right? So, during that first period where I joined and like I couldn't really do anything, couldn't register anyone at Celtic, I just spent that time like planning for the next season and buying guys for the next season. Because I couldn't improve my team because it wasn't during the transfer window. So sometimes looking ahead is quite important. And I don't know how you treat it. If you buy a new player, do you have a like maximum age of a player that you want to buy, or do you just look at the stats and the value of the player plus how they have or haven't been progressing?
Well, last season when I joined, I was more worried about stats than I was about age because the maximum age is 28. Obviously, I'd rather buy young players, but younger players tend to be more expensive. Now, when I'm searching, generally I put in like a max age 22. But if I can't find someone, I'm happy to go up to 25. And if I'm filling a gap and it's only a short term gap, then I don't mind going up to sort of 27, 28. I know it's only going to be for a few seasons, but like I bought a striker who was over 70 rated and he was 27, I think, at the end, towards the end of last season. For him to come into my B team this season, I actually ended up loaning him out to the Ramble team. But like strikers that were similarly priced at the time were going for like 60, 70 quid. I think I got him for 25 quid. So, 25 quid for an over 70 rated striker. And he's continued to progress this season because the person that had him wasn't using him. So,
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite interesting. I guess like well, as you said, I was always going to spend something. So, but if you're going to put an amount in that you feel as if you're committing like a decent amount financially, then you don't want to be buying too many older players, if that makes sense. Like the worst thing you could do is just go and spend like $2,000 on guys who are 28, and then just you're sitting in 2 months' time thinking that like some of these guys could start actually retiring like in May, So like as soon as I seen that dynamic, I thought that firstly I thought that's good because you won't get guys who can just continually sit at the top of the game for like 10 of our years, if you know what I mean. It'll have to be more dynamic because players will, retire quicker than they do in real life. So it's quite a good overall dynamic. But I just didn't want to like put in like, hundreds or four figures or whatever and then just realize they'd no resale value. But I mean the market's obviously improved as well, which is a great help to that. And like I've found that like, there's a couple of guys who are 25 who I think don't really need them anymore, but I've still managed to sell them on for more than I paid for them a month ago. So I think like you might pay a premium for guys who are a bit younger, but also you get that back a wee bit in terms of like the resale value as well. So it just depends what you're looking to do. If it's just a guy to fill a gap for the rest of his career, or if you're actually thinking about selling some of those guys on as you go up, hopefully through the divisions and stuff.
yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, I think buying young gives you options. But
Yeah,
I think now, if you were joining, you'd probably have to mix it up a bit more just because, demand's gone through the roof for young players, hasn't it? So,
yeah,
as you said earlier, the prices that people list them for now are just absurd. And it is quite difficult to negotiate. Obviously, you can send offers through floaty, or whatever the people call it. Uh, but, you don't know the person actually checks that. They may not use it. So,
yeah. I think the other thing is that, as I said earlier, I'm not seeing I don't know if there's as many 16-year-olds or whatever coming into the game. So there's an element of that. Like, I think I've seen a thing in Footium where, like, that's where they sort of fund the prizes or whatever. So they'll give you an option of minting some 16-year-olds, and then but you've got to pay Ethereum or whatever to mint them. And then you mint those players, and then obviously that money goes into the game. Whereas obviously in MFL, you could get a guy out of pack and he just comes out at 24 or whatever, so not all the players are coming in at 16. So that's going to be a really interesting thing to keep an eye on because as a lot of the players progress to 17, definitely didn't notice as many coming in at 16, or maybe if they did come in at 16, the guys who got them just weren't willing to list them or whatever.
mm,
But it'll be an interesting dynamic to see how that all works out. Or yeah, I mean, it would be quite cool if, as part of your license, they did let you pay a small fee to like mint a 16-year-old every year or whatever, like, or if it could be as your agency grows or whatever, your youth academy grows, there's different sort of ways that the game could be developed that way in line with like, Football Manager where you get like an intake or whatever. So
yeah.
pretty interesting stuff. I guess that's a good topic to end on then. Like, obviously we've discussed what's happened and I'm pretty confident to say we're both enjoying the games, we're spending money on it, but how do you see things sort of going from here, or is there anything you think that would be quite cool in terms of how the game will develop over time now?
I mean, like it's quite a small team. I think there's 4 people that work there. So I think what they've done so far, like over the last 12 months, is incredible. Like getting a 2D match engine up that works pretty well, and like getting all of that stuff working is fairly incredible. And what they've created, I think, is pretty impressive. But I think there are stuff that the crowds are looking for. I noticed some. I hadn't even thought about it, to be honest with you, but yellow cards and suspensions and stuff like that. Yeah, I'd quite like that in the game. But with only a 25-man squad, if you suddenly have got loads of players suspended, you're starting to, it's quite tough in the game now. I find 25-man squad quite restrictive, and although I haven't got to that this season, so down the line maybe they increase that to 30. I don't know. I'd love player instructions. I think for a quality of life thing, I would love to have, where you can tag managers, tag agents, sorry, and then you've got a page on the site where you can just click into it and it shows all of their games coming up and you can just click on their name and it brings up their division, how they're doing, just because I find it quite difficult sort of tracking. Like, I want to log on in the evening and often I'll watch my match and then I've got like 25 minutes to kill and I think, well, if no one's posted a link in our Discord, then how I can't remember really. I can hardly remember your team's names. That even my team's names, I can't remember anybody else's. And even player managers I know, sometimes I'll click in and it's like, oh no, they haven't got to go, and then I'm having to rattle through everybody's names trying to look who's got games.
Just
So
like favourites
that would
tab
be,
for the games. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Just a favourites tab for agents, and then a page where you can go on. It shows all the agents and all their upcoming games in chronological order. And then you can just click on them and watch the games.
Yeah.
And I think that, especially for like the watch-alongs that we have, which people just go in there, drop in the results. Some people like to have people watch the games and tell them what's going wrong. But I like to be able to see like an order. I think when we started the Discord, Hatton started putting everybody's games up at the start of the day, saying, right, these are the games, this is the order. But literally after a week, the amount of people that joined, it just became impossible for him to do. So it'd be great if the site had that. But that's like a quality of life stuff. There's loads of little stuff. But yeah, having like buying agencies, like having like a youth system, as you just said, would be quite cool. So you have one player, 16-year-old that comes through every season. Maybe you have to pay a price to have him signed up to the club or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, lots of stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that'll be really interesting. I guess they can't really do that until players start retiring as well, because you do have your reward packs and you do have your ongoing packs, which ultimately is that and the 5% fee in the secondary market is really the income. Yeah, it's quite interesting. I mean, the 2D match. I know I wasn't around when the 2D match engine wasn't there, if that makes sense. Double negative, but like I guess through time that could develop. It'd be quite cool if through time, like there would be a 3D match engine or whatever, like as the game expands, like, could it be a bit more like Football Manager where you actually have, you can see where they've hit the post, you can see where somebody scored an overhead kick, that type of thing. Cards and suspensions, I wouldn't mind it as much. I usually carry a full squad, but I think that would be quite hard for a lot of people just now. So you probably need to give notice on that, because once you start getting people suspended or whatever, then, you've got even more of an issue. And then the dreaded, which kills us in other platforms. Like, I hope they just avoid doing injuries, because, like, it's quite good. It's quite good that you're buying somebody and okay, they're not a real player or whatever, but they're not going to transfer to Saudi Arabia. They're not going to do their ACL. You've got all of that sort of stuff. So I hope that they concentrate just on the utility rather than bringing in things like that. So anyway, I'll shut up now. I didn't mention injuries. Like you said, in terms of the sort of overall quality of life stuff, there'll be loads of wee things there. I guess the negotiation stuff could really be expanded as well. I mean, like, you might have a situation where you might want to sell somebody on, but like insert like sell-on clauses, or you might want to sell somebody with a buyback clause and things. So there's so many things you can get into details wise. And I think the one thing I really need to improve myself is the tactics. Like, but it's hard because you run a 4-3-3, I run a 4-3-3. I can do different 4-3-3s. I can do a 3-4-3. But if somebody says, right, for this game you've got to run a 4-4-2, probably won't have the players to run a 4-4-2.
That's what I mean about a 25-man squad. It's quite restrictive unless you've got guys that can play multiple positions, but their prices are a little bit more expensive. And I do tend to look for players that can play multiple positions, but you don't always have them. So yeah, you're right. I think in my mind, I just want to be able to play two, maximum three formations a season. At the moment, I don't know whether it's working because I've got decent players or whether it's working because it's just works. So,
Yeah.
you don't know, do you?
Yeah, that's difficult. But one thing I would like to see is being able to retrain a player for a specific position.
Yeah,
Because you see guys where they show us a certain position on the card and then they're a plus in another position or whatever. But you see guys who have got naturally good stats for a certain position, but you can't play them in that position. So you can't just like play the guy as striker and say, well, he's a 70 for shooting. Like it won't let you because like he'll go in as like a 58 or whatever rather than as 70. So with guys like that where you've got a guy who's like a good attacking right mid, attacking right winger who would actually do a good job as a striker, then it'd be good if you could train that striker position so that the stats actually went in nearer 70. Because as you said, like if you get guys who play multiple positions, but a lot of them take a penalty for their out of position, right? So they're like two or three less for being a right winger or whatever as they are from being a centre mid. So you can play them in another position, but they don't have as good a starting rating or overall for that position. So that's where it's a bit more difficult. But I think there's loads of cool things that site can do anyway. So anyways, are you plans for next week? Are you going to try and get some packs next week or
I will do. Yeah, I'm just hoping I get one this time. I honestly don't understand how I didn't get one last time. Like,
yeah.
I like refreshed, as soon as it came up, which was maybe 2 or 3 seconds past like 10 o'clock, clicked on it and said out of stock. I was like, oh, for fuck's sake. Leapt onto Flouty or Floaty. What is it? What do you say?
Floaty? I don't know. Floaty.
Floaty. Flow. I guess
Floaty.
it's flow, isn't it? So floaty
Flow
makes more sense.
TY, yeah. I
Yeah,
floaty.
yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, I jumped on there and made a couple of offers, and then the floors kept on rising up. So eventually, I just bought one for 200, but
Yeah.
it paid off this time. But yeah, I'd love to be able to get like at least the top two packs. And there's more of them, isn't there? There's more standard packs as well, I think.
Yeah. I
So
think
yeah, we'll see if it makes much difference. But
I wonder as well when they'll do some legendary packs. I remember we were discussing it before we were on something talking, and I was like, I think it was actually on the Ramble podcast. And I was like, if they did do a legendary pack for $400 or $500, then I'd be pretty tempted to just go and get one as well. So like I wonder at what point they'll consider introducing some legendary players again. Because one thing I did notice if you go
well, you
and
do get them, don't you? You get them in the packs. So there's always a couple that get released in those packs.
yeah, that's right.
Um, I don't know what the percentage is. What's the percentage in a rare pack? Is it like 1 or 2% or something?
1% or something, I think.
I guess like because there's like across the three cards and there's varying percentages. Maybe you get. In fact, yeah, it's not that many. Maximum you're probably going to get is one across all of the rare packs and one maybe in the standards.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah,
obviously, variance wise, you might get a window where four or five come out, but then you might get another window where none come out. So, I mean, one thing I did notice is that when they stock up like the rare and the legendary players for MFL only, which is obviously the reward packs for the individual players, a lot
yeah,
are sitting just now unclaimed. So I just assumed that with the top guys obviously winning like 900,000 MFL for winning Diamond, that those would all be snapped up. But I think that the issue is, with the exception of Akan, who's put a lot of money in now, and will obviously then just take all the MFL that he wins. But I think a lot of the guys at top end are quite leveraged in terms of loans. So, they might win 900,000, they might win the Diamond division, but they might only get like 20% of that back themselves or whatever. So they might not have 300,000 MFL or whatever to go and buy a legendary player. So it's going to be quite interesting to see how all that sort of pans out. Or maybe, as you say, maybe they just won't do legendary packs. I scrolled back through and seen they'd done them previously, but I guess they've probably done that because they had to actually get legendary players out into circulation to start off the game. So,
how many legendary packs were there? Sorry, at the start.
well,
Was it
I'm
because
not,
there's 15 left? I honestly can't remember. But yeah, you're right. I thought they'd get snapped up as well. And
they're
there's
just individual players. I think it was only like 25 or something like that. It's you can see it's all been done with scarcity in mind. It wasn't like there's going to be 100 legendary players available. Like it only started out at like 20 or 25 or whatever, but like they've not sold out. So I guess for my
Quite a
previous
lot,
league,
like 360,000 MFL. You need to be like finishing, I think, mid-table in Diamond to get that amount. Obviously, there's
yeah,
people that have multiple clubs, but it's still a lot like to get. So they've probably priced it correctly.
yeah,
I find it weird, like the price comparisons they've got. Like the one rare player, the pack price is 52,000 MFL, which apparently, according to the calculations at the moment, equates to $65. I can tell you, it does not equate to $65
yeah,
now. You know, those prices are well off.
aye.
Like, I guess if you're getting a random, an average rare, probably looking at $100 now. You know, and if you're getting a top rare from that pack, it could be worth considerably more. So.
Yeah. The 83 and the 84 guys are going for like 300, $350. So like, you know, to get somebody who is only worth $50, you would have to get someone who's a 75, which is the very lowest out of the
75 goalkeeper is 27 years old or something like that.
yeah, aye, they
Five
have to
foot
be
six,
older.
five
Yeah,
foot six, and looks like one of us.
barely like me and you. But I like that's probably a bit outdated. But I think actually they should probably update that with the averages just to put into people's minds that your 12,000 MFL is actually worth a bit more than it was before. Because obviously I've looked at it and I've kind of had a look and so if I win both these leagues, what am I going to get? So I'm going to come out with about 25,000 MFL. So I could win two leagues, albeit they're really low down leagues, and it doesn't even give me enough to buy a rare player. So. But
And
then
yeah, you're right because the uncommon one is currently down at 10,000 MFL, £12.50. But I'm telling you, if you get a 74 rated, I think I did one and got a 74 rated defender. Admittedly, he was young, but he was only like 5'10" or something. But I guarantee I could sell him for 80 quid.
yeah.
So
It must be worth more. Definitely must be worth more. And I guess it's natural. Like you do want people to really have the desire to move up as well. You don't want people just want to play in the Ice League every season and come in with new licenses. You want guys to build up and come up through the ranks and be competitive and take on a can and take on the Diamond League guys or whatever. Because one thing I haven't done so far is I haven't taken in any loans. I haven't loaned anybody in. I've only loaned people out. So
no,
like
neither have I. No, I
so
haven't in a season and a half yet.
so it's quite interesting
I
because
think at the start, because I wanted to get players in that would be with me for sort of the journey, probably the same as you did, buying young players. But it is getting to a point now where I'm considering it. Unless Liverpool, if Liverpool don't have a big win this weekend, weird that like everything relies on that. But if they don't have a decent win, I don't crush so rare this weekend, then I probably will have. I'll get the packs. I'll try and get the packs, but I'll then probably need to get loans.
yeah.
Literally, while we've been speaking, I've just been depositing. You probably saw me looking at my phone. So, like, there is more money now sitting there in the monkey magic balance, waiting to be spent.
Nice.
The
Because
reason I saw that is because I saw a player on the market. I looked at him on MFL Player Info, and his MFL Player Info value was way above what he is on within. I
in
can't
the
bloody
market.
page now. Yeah,
Yeah. It's definitely
he's
a good
young
thing
as
to use
well.
that. I think the other thing that you might want to have a look out for is maybe guys who have listed a couple of weeks ago but not adjusted their prices. Because sometimes the people just look at the new listings, but having a look at the older listings is quite an interesting thing to do because you might have people who just have, as you said, they're a bit more inactive and have listed that 19-year-old guy like 2 weeks ago thinking this guy's only worth $60, but the market's actually moved on a bit since then, and it's a bit more of a premium for younger players and things. So it's pretty interesting. But anyways, that's well over an hour anyway, so we'll probably
Probably gone for
finish
another
it.
hour, couldn't we? Rabbiting on about various things.
No, I know, but I appreciate you coming on. I mean, just think like just to end, I know we're both really enjoying the game, so that's a really good thing. And as I said it earlier, but if you made it to this point, please do make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. But if you're new to the game, I definitely would recommend you join the Sorare Ramble Discord. Obviously, you're involved in the Discord. I'm in the Discord. There's lots of good knowledge and everything about there, and it's a good place to cut your teeth and learn about the game.
We're trying to make it the Web3 football gaming destination. So we've got the big three games covered off at the moment. But yeah,
Good. Right, we're only one way of finishing this channel, and it's MFL, and it's so rare, so you've got to say it. If everyone's watching this, get to this point, good luck, and go fuck. Monkey?
Go fuck. And good luck. Just go.